Welcome to the Battle Buddy Podcast with Keith McKeever.
Hey, welcome back to another episode. I've got an amazing guest today. This is a guy I know personally. I've volunteered with him. Super awesome guy. What we're going to talk about today is serving your community. So without further ado, my good friend from the next town over, Mr. Rick Otey.
Hey, very
Welcome
good.
To the show. Welcome
Good
to the show, Rick.
you.
Yeah, always good to catch up with you. I feel like I've seen you a little bit frequently, probably just because we had our fourth honor flight of the year here.
Yes.
I'm losing track of time like a week ago. Repping the Greater Peoria Honor Flight shirt here.
There you go.
So,
very good.
But give us a little rundown of who Rick Otey is and what your military story was.
Well, my name is Rick Otey, and I served in the United States Navy aboard a destroyer from 69 to 71. Spent most of 1970 in a 5-inch gun mount off the coast of Vietnam. I drew the short straw, I guess, because I was the hot shellman, which meant I wore asbestos gloves up to my elbow, and my responsibility after the gun fired and the empty powder casing came out hot. It was my responsibility to catch that thing and throw it out of a little hole in the bottom and the floor of the gun mount, just so no one got burned. So that was my main duty. I was a storekeeper aboard ship, and I enjoyed that. But my primary responsibility, and it seemed like the one we did most, was firing that big gun. So that was I was home ported in San Diego, and then we were in Subic Bay, was our home port over there in Vietnam. We only spent about maybe a week at the most in Subic Bay. The rest of the time we were either on the gun line or operating with a carrier, providing support for them, picking up any pilots who had to ditch on their way back from in country. Thankfully, we never had to do that, but it was primarily on the gun line off the coast of Vietnam.
Yeah. It's interesting you say you got the short straw.
I did.
Because it sounds like a very tight, cramped quarters, and people can't tell on video, but I know you personally. You're not a small guy.
I'm 6'4", and I was then. I was, and actually there were, I think there were 12 of us in the gun mount. It was a double mount.
Wow.
And it seemed like our gun was the one that was the prominent gun or the predominant one. So we fired much more than the other gun did. But it was pretty cramped in there. And I learned how to sleep on a little box, curled up on a box, probably 2 feet by 2 feet. Somehow I was able to get everything in there to catch a little nap until we had to light off and go on another mission. So it was good for me, though. I'm thankful. I'm glad to be a veteran.
Yeah, it's one of those skills nobody ever talks about that you can learn in the military is where to sleep in odd positions.
Well, you get very creative sometimes.
I still say to this day, sleeping in the seat of a Humvee, you just pop the back of your neck right there on the seat, slouch down a little bit.
Right.
Of course, we had the body armor, so kind of the plates kind of hold your back straight a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's probably some of the best sleep ever. But it's weird.
That was pretty much my what I did in the military, and I'm like I say, I'm proud to be a veteran. I'm glad I went. You grow up really, really fast. I hadn't hardly been out of Illinois even when I left, so I'm thankful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for your service and welcome home, by the way.
Thank you. Yours as well.
Yeah. So, knowing you as well as I do, probably more than most other guests I've had on here, you went through something about 17 years ago. Give a little bit of a backstory. We are here in the Peoria, Illinois area for any listeners or viewers. We've got amazing hospitals, very huge medical community here. And OSF St. Francis Medical Center just got, correct me if I'm wrong on this, a proton beam cancer treatment. They're putting in a huge cancer treatment facility. I know you're a huge advocate for that, and you went through the treatment on that. So can you tell us a little bit about your story and what that means to you to have something like that here locally?
Okay. Yeah. On February 4th of 2005, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I had no symptoms that would tell me I even needed to go see a urologist. But a friend of mine asked me if I knew, he had just been newly diagnosed, asked me if I knew what my PSA was. And I said, well, all those letters mean to me, it's the airline I flew in and out of San Francisco in the 70s in California was PSA Airlines. And so it's a simple blood test. I went and got a blood test. My PSA was a little elevated. He sent me to a urologist who did a biopsy, a 24 core biopsy, which is quite a bit. and I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so, of course, once you get over the shock of hearing that big C word, I asked the urologist, what do we do about it? And well, he said we can do radioactive seeds, or I can do surgery, and I do both of those. I said, well, he explained to me what was involved and about the operation, and I thought, well, keep going because that doesn't sound like something I want to do. And he explained the radioactive seed implants, and I was really considering that. I got online and joined a support group of guys who had been seeded and put in all my information. And I got an email from a guy who actually lives in Milwaukee, but he was in Egypt on business at the time. He saw my post and said, you know, this is a great group of guys, but there's another option open to you, and it's called proton beam therapy. He told me where to go to check it out, and I did. I went over to Bloomington, Indiana for my treatments, and it was amazing, amazing treatment. I could not believe I was being treated for cancer. I had 44 treatments, and it took over 9 weeks period. I would leave on Monday afternoon, go over to Bloomington, Indiana, stayed with friends over there, thankfully. And then they treat me as early as they could on Friday, and I'd be home by Friday afternoon. But like I say, I just couldn't believe I was being treated for cancer. There was no pain, no side effects. I ran 4 to 6 miles every day of the treatment. I was, at the time, I had been doing the Memphis Peoria Run for St. Jude for about 10 years.
Wow.
And I was committed to that. So on that Wednesday and Thursday that the run left Memphis, I did my 6 miles in Bloomington, Indiana. They treated me early Friday morning as they could. I jumped in my car, drove over to Sandoval, Illinois, met the run there. My brother-in-law took my car, and I hopped in the motorhome and did the rest of my run all the way into Peoria. And there was no reason not to, because I could, you know.
That's incredible, because I know like chemo and radiation, some other things just ravages a body.
Right.
So
right.
that's
Actually,
mind-boggling.
My radiation oncologist, I met with him Wednesday nights after my treatment. And the first Wednesday, he asked me just a series of questions about bathroom functions and stuff. And he said, now this last question is, some guys experience some fatigue from the radiation. So what's your energy level like? And I said, well, I ran 6 miles this afternoon. He checked it off. He said, well, I guess you're okay then. Well, then every week, every Wednesday night, it just got to be a joke with him. Now, this last question I got to ask you, well, I ran 4 miles this afternoon. And so yeah, I've been flying the flag and beating the drum for 17 years on this proton thing to get it into Peoria. I started contacting them probably in 2007, I think, emailing them saying, man, really got to get on the map with this thing. And I'm just one individual. But thankfully, Dr. McGee over there in Peoria, he started about 10 years ago, really, really pushing to get it. And the sisters over there at OSF, they're the ones that made it happen. It's an amazing addition to the Peoria area, and it changed so many lives. And it's just, I could bore you stiff talking about proton.
No, I'm just amazed that that you were able to go run, because when I think of cancer treatment, because my father passed away from cancer when I was 16, and I remember the chemo and the radiation and how what it did to him. I've known other people with cancer. So to have a treatment that's painless and you
Yeah.
still had the energy and the time to go run is,
Yeah.
quite frankly, almost mind-boggling to me.
It really is, and that's been the frustrating part, that knowing about it, and so many doctors. What's been frustrating is that I find that people have to find proton beam, thinking, man, it ought to be offered as an option. And when I talk to people, actually after I finish the podcast here, I've already got a request from a friend to call another friend of his that was just diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so I've counseled with a lot of people, a lot of men and women actually, with even breast cancer, and about this. And I don't tell them what to do. That's not my place. It's the patient's place. It's not the doctor's place even to tell them. It's the patient to gather all the information and then make your own decision. I don't tell them I'm sold on proton beam, but that was for me. And if they choose it, God bless them. If they don't, God bless them.
And, you got to be an advocate for your own medical, your own medical care for sure.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna answer for any side effects.
Exactly.
They are, So it's completely up to them. It's their choice. I don't push them to proton beam. I tell them my experience, because I found that no one told. Well, the guy from Milwaukee told me, but I had to find it. You shouldn't have to find care for cancer. It ought to be, all the options ought to be told to a patient, and you make your own decision, and then you pay for the consequences if there are any. Hopefully, there's not.
Yeah.
But the what amazes me about proton beam is that it was developed through the Manhattan Project, when they learned that they could split the atom, and they were developing the atomic bomb to drop on Hiroshima. They learned through that technology. So a technology that killed 89,000 people in 3 minutes in Hiroshima, and another 23,000 in Nagasaki in August of 1945. One of the physicists on that project, Robert R. Wilson, he thought, you know what, if we take that proton beam, we speed it up to 2/3 the speed of light, which is 477 million miles an hour, I bet we can treat people with cancer. Who thinks like that? He did. So a technology that vaporized thousands of people in minutes is now treating people with cancer, multiple cancers, breast cancer. People don't hear about proton beam with breast cancer, but because they can control that somehow, they control that thing screaming at you that fast. They can deliver it to the tumor within a millimeter. So it's the only way with proton beam. It's the only way you can treat with the highest dose of radiation with the least impact on healthy tissue. X-ray or photon radiation, they can't stop it. It goes in you and it goes out you. So you have to limit the dose, because you're radiating healthy tissue along with the cancer. And so what they find is, especially with women with breast cancer, with the left breast, with conventional radiation, it burns the skin. It goes all the way through you. So you're treating with the left side, you're treating the cancerous tumor in the breast. You're also treating the heart, and you're treating the lungs. With proton beam, you go in, you do the tumor on the breast, and you leave everything alone. I've talked to women that says, I had breast cancer and now I'm on medication the rest of my life for heart. And I didn't have a heart issue. I had breast cancer.
Yeah. I would have never thought about that.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
That's why people need to be an advocate for their own care, and they need to be able to research. Yes. And this being a military and veteran podcast, I think we all understand that when you need to attack something, you come up with every possible plan. Don't leave any stone unturned.
Right. Right.
What can you do to attack this as effectively and efficiently and as quickly and as violently as possible? That's what we do in the military.
Right?
Yeah.
It's cancer. You gotta kill it.
You gotta fight.
Kill you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I suspect that going through all of this has probably shaped quite a bit of who you are. So I've known you for a
yeah,
long time. You do a lot of different things. Uh,
yeah,
you went on your first honor flight this year. You've been
yeah,
volunteering for honor flight for a while. You and your wife do a very special project for the honor flight.
right.
You go into the local school and
Yep,
welcome the kids. I think it was every Thursday.
yeah.
Um, what am I missing? There's something.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
oh,
You dress as President Abraham Lincoln and you go
on
around
it.
and tell people about Lincoln and give speeches and proclamations.
Yeah,
And you are an absolute,
yeah.
you are like a celebrity at our honor flight
Oh,
events. Anywhere I've seen you
oh,
go, people
oh,
absolutely love it.
I
But
enjoy
I
it.
have a funny feeling that going through cancer and previous things in life has shaped like who you are
Yeah,
and serving your community. Would that be
right.
a pretty correct assessment?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is. My faith in God is is key to me. It's who I am. You might be seeing me on the screen there, but my faith in God is what gets me through the difficult times. My wife and I lost a 21-year-old son, uh, or almost 21 years. Was 21 years ago. He was almost 22. He battled depression, and uh, he died April 27th, 2001. Of course, that was a difficult time for all of us. Still is. I've told people many times if it wasn't for God in my life, I'd be curled up in the fetal position in the corner. And so that that experience was the worst of our lives. So I thought since then everything else is downhill. I can conquer anything. Cancer came along. I thought we're going to get through it because we got through 2001. So my faith is very important to me. I don't want to preach or anything, but I want that to be known that's why I am who I am. It's not me. I'd be curled up in the fetal position somewhere. But yeah, he's opened up the door for Lincoln. I've got a niece, Erica Daring. She teaches first grade at Woodrow Wilson School of East Peoria. She called me up in December of 2016. Said, "Hey, Uncle Rick, have you ever thought about playing Abraham Lincoln?" I
I mean, you got the height, right?
Well, yeah, I've got the height and the weight. So I told her, I said, it's one of those, I thought about it, but never said anything to anybody about it. And she said, well, if you want to, she said, my kids would just enjoy it. So I started in 2017 going to schools, and I had some pretty significant health issues all through 2017. And that kind of kept me from some of that. But yeah, I started doing Lincoln officially in January of 2017, and have enjoyed it. Like you said, I've done every honor flight since September of 2018. I started the first honor flight as Lincoln. I enjoy going out to the welcome homes, and I call it working the crowd. I've got some different things I do with the kids. I've got my little special, you can see it, let's see, get it in there. Special bicentennial pennies I get right from the mint. So I'm the only one that's touched them. I take them out there and show them to the kids and say, if you want it, I put it in their hand and fold it over. I said, now it's extra special because you and I are the only two people in the whole wide world that's touched that coin. And it's like $1,000,000 to them or something. In fact, I had a grandmother tell me just about a month ago. She said, "You gave one of those to my grandson at the Hopedale homecoming or 4th of July parade, and he won't let anybody touch that. In fact, last week he asked my husband, his grandpa, could you put this in the safe so nobody will touch it?" So it really means something to him. And I give him a little picture of me. I have fun with this because oftentimes a kid will come up and say, "Hey, can we take your picture?" I reach in my pocket and pull this out, and I said, "Well, you don't have to take it. I'll give it to you." And some of them look puzzled, like I don't know what that means. And so I just got, of course, I give them a little United States flag, a little sticker. Kids like stickers. And I just got these nifty little things. If you can see it, if I can get it in there, it's a little, you fold it over and it kind of becomes like a crown.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's got some different facts on the front. So I'm going to start giving those out at honor flights in April or whenever the next one
That's
is.
really
So,
cool.
yeah, so I enjoy doing that. I walk in parades. I don't take myself too serious. It is a funny thing. There's the same gentleman at the welcome homes at every honor flight. He always offers me 2 tickets to Ford's Theater. And and I kind of like, is that all you got? You know, I finally, the last 2 honor flights, he's been there all 4, but the last 2, I tell him, you know, one of the things I most appreciated as being president, I didn't need a ticket to get into the theater, so you can keep those in your pocket, and all. But yeah, yeah. So I enjoy going to schools, parades, festivals, that sort of thing.
So did you have a passion for Lincoln before that?
I really didn't. I just
Okay.
not particularly.
I mean, just general knowledge we have as being Illinoisans.
Yeah, no different than anybody else. I could hold my own pretty good in a trivia contest today, but then I was just like everybody else. But yeah, I went on the June 2nd honor flight. Phyllis Perino is one of the leaders of honor flight. She had asked me several times to go out as Lincoln, and I kept putting her off, and I told her, I said, I enjoy that welcome home. I don't want to give that up. And she said, even if it meant that I'd never go on my own veteran flight, you know. And she said, well, I'll tell you what. She said, you go on the June flight, we'll make sure that you're the first one off the plane when we land in Peoria. And you can do your thing with the crowd while we're getting the rest of the veterans off. And so I did. I went out on the June 2nd flight. My granddaughter, Christina, went with me as my guardian, and that was wonderful. And so I made a day of it. It was very tiring because I felt like I needed to be on all day. You know, I needed to be him. It was really tiring.
You had a little bit more to do than the average veteran that goes.
Yeah. So when we got to the Lincoln Memorial, Phyllis asked me, she said, hey, I want to go over and do a Facebook Live video right away of you walking up the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And then she said, I know you're in Vietnam. So then I went she was very nice. She wanted to make sure, I want you to feel like you had your veteran on her flight too, not just Lincoln. And so and then she said, you can go over to Vietnam Wall. So we started walking away from the bus, and she stopped and turned around. She said, hold on a second, and turned around, and she pointed to 2 men who were volunteers on the honor flight, and said, I want you to come along with us to provide security. And then I was not sure I wanted to go over there to the Lincoln Memorial because I don't know what she was talking about.
So what do you need security there for?
Yeah. So on the video, you can't see them, but they're right behind me walking up the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and it was just awesome. It seemed like the further I got up, the more people just, there's President Lincoln, there's Abraham Lincoln, what, there is, you know. And I walked up. She wanted me to just go up and stand in front of the statue and just kind of ponder what he might be thinking, seeing that statue. And you can see on the video, it just, people are like, what in the world, this guy, you know. And it was an experience I'll never forget. There was one gentleman from Australia, I think it was, and he actually bowed before me. I thought,
wow.
It was so neat just to see that after 157 years, people still just, they literally love the man. And that was awesome to see. So that gives me hope for our country, you know.
That's pretty cool. Because I was on that flight with you, and I have no idea where I had ended up as volunteer staff at that point in time, but you know, you never know what
you were our bus captain actually.
Yeah, you never know where you're going to end, what you're going to see at those memorials. Because I've seen little bands, concerts, people just playing music on their own, selling Gatorade, school groups, like So I think people that go there, they expect to see this big, beautiful building, the inscriptions, and
Yeah.
kind of have this, what do I say, like this power or aura of being at the
Right.
Lincoln Memorial.
Right. Right.
But the last thing you ever expect is somebody walking up the steps. It looks like
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine after that flight, he wasn't on the flight, but a friend of mine who travels a lot, he said, I'm in and out of Washington, D.C. all the time. He said, I've done it for years. I've been to the Lincoln Memorial dozens of times. He said, I have never seen Abraham Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial. So it was pretty cool. And Phyllis was true to her word. When we got back, Christina and I were one of the first ones off the flight. I was able to go visit with the people, the crowd. And what I really enjoy doing, and I've done it since September of 18, I've shaken hands with every veteran on every flight since 2018. And I really enjoy doing that, greeting the vets when they come back into the terminal. I often have vets say, hey, I just saw your memorial out there. It was awesome, or I just saw you out in DC. And I said, well, I took an earlier flight or something like that. And I put in each mail bag, I put a little card from Lincoln in there. And oftentimes say, hey, I got your card, and so that's good that they get that. So it's really a highlight of my life, really.
Well, they absolutely love that mail call. There's no doubt about it. And that's a special task that you and your wife do for our honor flight. And I know that's a huge task.
Nobody's supposed to know about that. So
that's all right. Yeah, I won't say anything.
I am still amazed that there are people that are surprised. They're totally shocked. I'm thinking after all this time,
so am I.
Word would have gotten out,
I think I've been helping since 2014, 2015. I don't know. It's been quite a while. It's been over.
Yep.
I think it's been 22 flights that I've helped with in one capacity or another.
Good for you.
And yeah, it is still amazing. Like after all the press, after all the stories, after all these guys who have, all their battle buddies or the guys that they go to lunch with or whatever, and they're still surprised.
Still surprised. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. So Mary Ann really enjoys it. She's still I think the April flight she processed about 2,600 cards and about 2,500 or so for the June flight. September was about the same. The October flight, for whatever reason, seemed a little bit under that, or quite a bit under that, actually. So that's got to be addressed somehow. There's some problem there. I don't know.
Well, sometimes, we put that on the guardians that go with the veterans.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of, you just got to have that one person that's just gung-ho about it. And sometimes maybe you just get people who don't have a lot of family or connections. So
yeah, and even that, though, I mean, the guardian can do their thing, and they can only do so much, It is up to the friends and family to follow through, and so, but it's our house here is looking like a post office and with a lot of mail coming in, but it's really Mary Ann she's the mover and shaker on it. I like anything, any spouse. One takes on something, the other one is part of it too.
You're just there for the free labor. You're just Here, Rick, just stuff this. Put this in here, right? The dummy work.
I really enjoy seeing that mailbox so full because it just really encourages me as a veteran. It's like, okay, we are still, and most of them now on the flights are Vietnam vets. So I think, oh man. It's so awesome to see that the mailbox is full. Back on I think it was the September flight, she opened up the mailbox and it was crammed full. We take 2 bags to get the mail, and there was a key in there with instructions to go to another box and open it up, a much bigger box. And there could have been a dozen large manila envelopes from schools and that sort of thing. So it does something to me personally just to see the support that the veterans are getting, and especially now that we're more into Vietnam vets. So it's been a plus for me. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
We got mail bags laying all over the place the week before the flight, but that's awesome.
It's a key part of what we do.
It is.
And it is nice, especially for the Vietnam vets, because every generation gets a little something different. Because we've been lucky enough that we took 2 World War II veterans this year.
Yes.
which is
Yes.
phenomenal because I can tell you,
Absolutely is.
after last or like coming into this year, it was like with the pandemic,
Yeah.
and we were
Yeah.
not getting that many before the pandemic.
Right.
I think we all kind of thought as an organization there's no way we're going to find any World War II veterans,
Right.
and we found
Right.
2.
Yeah. Yeah.
The gentleman that went in October was 99,
99.
and we were able to
Well,
bless him. He did the he was part of the wreath laying ceremony
yeah.
at Arlington, which was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
Yeah.
grinning ear to ear.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And on the June 2nd flight, I'm glad you mentioned that because it reminded me, not that I've forgotten by any means, but as Lincoln, dressed as Lincoln, and we had a World War II vet from Hopedale, Ben Maurer there. He was 98 on June 2nd, was his birthday. And so I was honored to be able to work up and laminate and read a birthday proclamation to a World War II vet at the World War II Memorial as Lincoln. And that was awesome. That was
Absolutely.
awesome. That was really cool.
That was probably the highlight of his day, I'm guessing.
Oh, I bet.
Which is, you've been there. There's lots of highlights to your day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which begs the question for you,
ahead.
what was your highlight of the trip?
Well, obviously having my granddaughter along. I've got 6 grandkids and 6 granddaughters, and 7 grandkids, 6 granddaughters and 1 grandson. And Christina was 18 there, and that was probably the highlight, just being there with her. I felt a little bit bad for her that I kind of feel like I was so busy trying to be a Lincoln that maybe I wasn't significant grandpa, but she enjoyed it. I do think probably one of the key highlights definitely was walking up the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and then presenting that birthday proclamation to a World War II vet at the World War II Memorial as Lincoln on his 98th birthday, and it was just awesome. I was worn out though. At the end of the day, it was pretty tiring.
Absolutely.
So, I'm glad I went on that. So, and I did feel like actually I welcomed each veteran back into the terminal there at the June 2nd flight, and Christina was right there behind me, and we had it all figured out that once I greeted the last veteran, I'd take my coat off quick and the top hat, and I put my T-shirt on over my white shirt and put my ball cap on and walked down the ramp, and I got my welcome home. So I was thrilled with that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm sure your granddaughter got way more out of it than you ever expect.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She
had to have been absolutely just thrilled and honored to be the one to be able to go with you to witness that.
She was. I before a couple of weeks before the flight, I went and had a special little heart necklace made up for her, and I think I had on the front of it to Christina from Grandpa, and on the back I had June 2nd, 2022 Greater Peoria Honor Flight on the back. Presented that to her at the pre-flight dinner, I think is where I gave that to her. She was thrilled. So it was all good. Yeah, she enjoyed flight. Yeah, she enjoyed everything.
That is awesome.
She hadn't flown since she was probably she wouldn't have remembered it. She was a little baby the last time she flew. So when she realized we were going to be flying, she asked me, "So will you hold my hand when we take off?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do whatever you need me to do,
hubby." I know that nervousness because in September there was a last minute opening, and Phyllis had contacted me and said, "Hey, he was a veteran who dropped off an issue with his wife." And so she's like, "Would your oldest like to go?" Because I've been bringing him to the pre-flight dinner setups and different volunteering things.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sure he would have no problem with missing a day of school. I contacted his teacher, and his teacher's like, "Well, I took my grandfather a couple years ago." Like, absolutely. Awesome. Like, none of his assignments due today are going to be great. Like, he can turn them in later this week. Like, go enjoy it. He needs to learn.
Yeah.
So I got to go with my son.
I remember
he just went as an extra helper. That poor kid. I tell you what, he fell asleep. Pulled up to the Marine Corps Iwo Jima Memorial. So I woke him up and I said, "Hey man, you still got more work to do." And he's rubbing the sleep out of us. I was like, "You got more work to do, dude." I can
Yeah.
pull the water bottles out. You got to pass the water bottles out. He
Oh,
goes out
yeah,
there, he
yeah,
sits
yeah.
down next to the cooler and passes out with his head on the cooler.
Oh, no.
And all the veterans are coming off, and they're all laughing. Them and the Guardians. They're
Yeah.
like, this kid has
Yeah.
just been working his butt off. They're like,
Yeah.
just leave him be. We're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
He's worked his tail off. He
oh
deserves a
yeah,
little rest.
I thought it
Yeah.
was hilarious. He bounced
I
back a little bit, but he was nervous as heck to fly too. He had never flown before.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he's just
Yeah.
sitting there in the chair, just he's
Right.
like
Yeah.
across the aisle from each other, and he's looking at me sideways, like,
Yeah.
is this gonna be painful? Is this gonna
Yeah.
hurt? Am I gonna be
Yeah.
scared?
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
But he came
I
back
was
and he told his little brother, he's like, it was
I
fun.
remember him being along. That was awesome. Yep. Very good to
Absolutely.
see. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good for kids to have some of that experience, or young adults like your
Yeah.
granddaughter, and see things.
Right. Right.
And that's another thing I
Yeah.
want to talk about is you go into another thing you do in the community, which is what I wanted this theme to be. Like, there's different ways people can serve their community. It can be through an organization, or it could just be showing up for people. But you and other veterans of your town show up, was it once a week?
We do every Thursday morning. We've got 17 vets on our list. Any given week, we'll have a dozen to 10 to 12 on our list. This is our 6th year doing it. Becky Hansen is the principal at Tremont, and she's allowed us to do this for our 6th year. It's a simple little thing. We just go and we fist bump the kids as they come off the bus, or I call them the street kids that are dropped off by their parents on the north side of school. And we just fist bump the kids, wish them a good day. And I've had teachers tell me it's just most favorite day of the week for them. We had a mother that dropped off a kindergarten girl, I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe 4. And she kissed her goodbye, and the little girl goes into the school, and the mother started walking back down the sidewalk, and she came back. She got about halfway down to the block and came back, and she said, I can't leave without telling you guys, my daughter jumps out of bed on Thursday mornings and says, it's Thursday, the vets are going to be there. And so with most of us being Vietnam vets or Vietnam era vets, it's just huge. And we love it. The kids love it. We've heard kids say, the vets just brighten my day. They make my heart feel so good and stuff. So, and we do, you mentioned World War II vets. We have Gene Neely is a World War II vet. He'll be 98 on November 28th, I think it is. And he makes most of them. If it's a little too chilly out, or if he feels a little sniffle, runny nose or something, he won't come. He'll stay in. The kids love seeing him. The teachers love seeing him.
Well, Gene's like a town celebrity.
We
should fill everybody in on that. So you're talking about Gene Neely, this guy, like you said, World War II veteran.
Yep.
He's been helping with Honor Flight longer than I have.
Yeah.
This guy sells more fundraising tickets in the spring for one of our fundraisers than anybody.
Yes.
I mean, anybody. He'll sell 300. He'll have 150 of them sold before we even get the booklets.
I know.
I mean, he just picks up the phone. He makes his phone calls. He calls me every now and then just to check in, how I'm doing.
Yeah.
He's got his little goofy grin and his little thumbs up. We've got stickers made for it.
Oh, yeah.
He sits at the top of the ramp for every welcome home and shakes everybody's hand. And
Right.
his purpose on that, not because he's our celebrity, but his purpose is he's working. He's volunteering. He won't let anybody tell him anything different. His job for that day is to sit in that chair and slow down the pace.
Oh, yeah.
He's very proud of that.
He's very good at it too. He'll hold up the stop sign, or he'll just motion them on. You got to get going. You know?
Absolutely. So, he's an inspiration too for me for just serving other people. Because I heard him in a meeting once. This was many years ago. It was a group of us Honor Flight volunteers and just kind of have a planning meeting. And something was said, and Gene just stands up and he kind of pounds the table and he says, you know what? I know I'm older than all of you. And y'all kind of treat me like a celebrity, but I want you to know I am a volunteer just like every one of you, and I don't want to be treated any differently.
Yep.
And I was like, just that the humbleness of like, look, I'm nobody special. I'm just here just like you to do what I can.
Yeah, and he you can tell he really values He'll call me up usually on Wednesday night and say, "Hey, can you give me a wake up call in the morning?" I call him about 6:30, and then he kind of decides whether he thinks he's going to go or not. And he's still driving, so he normally drives himself over to the school. And of course, any kind of thing that you greet kids as veterans and all after it's over, somebody says, maybe we ought to go out to Jack's for breakfast. So we go out to Jack's on the east side of Tremont here every Thursday morning for breakfast for about an hour. We have a fallen soldier ceremony every Thursday. It's not a formal one. we have 6 veterans from Tremont who died in uniform. And so on those specific dates, or the Thursday closest to that date, we do have a formal ceremony with a white tablecloth and the rose and the candle and the inverted glass and everything. And we have a more formal one then. But every week we always set a place at the end of the table, napkin, silverware laid out, and then we before our food comes, we all stand, face the chair, and we raise our coffee cups or orange juice glasses, whatever you got, and we just to the fallen, you'll never be forgotten, and we have that, and it's important for us to do, and so like I say, the formal ones we invite any family members that are still around. Our next one will be November. We've got a Bob Vidal. He was listed as missing in action. His plane went down over Laos in November of '71. He'll be our next one. And then Daniel Baker will be early December. He was a Marine. He was one of the 5 Marines killed in 2018 in December 6th, I think it was, off the coast of Japan when the C-130 went down. Yeah, Daniel was on that flight. So last December we had one for Daniel, and his father Dwayne was there, and he couldn't stay because he was still working. So, but you could tell he was very appreciative of what we did. He went around and hugged everybody, and of course there were tears all around, because we knew Daniel, and there was a big ceremony and all in Daniel's day of Daniel's funeral. Never recovered his body, but we honored him well. So we do that.
People keep those memories, keep those stories alive, and not let that stuff pass to history.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if we don't continue to do it, I mean, we don't want those things to pass away, and it's important for our country, and I think especially in all the world country we're dealing with today, all this stuff. It's to me, we better be patriotic. We better continue, because to me it's obvious there's a faction in our country, and don't want political at all, and I'm not sure it is political. I believe there's a faction in this country that would like nothing more than to see our democracy and our republic fail. And
probably is quite a few people out there like that.
Yeah, and I think it's going to behoove us to continue to be patriotic and fly the flag, and
we can all agree that our country might have some problems, but it is a beautiful country full of amazing people and a land of opportunity. And there's more positives than negatives, and we have to focus on that.
And there's way more positives. The negatives is what gets the news, like anything, I guess. But yeah, it's up to us.
Absolutely. That's why I tell all the because I do the Guardian training slides and all that stuff, and so when the Guardians come to pick up their packets, every now and then we'll have a veteran that will come with their Guardian, or the veteran will come by themselves.
Yeah.
So I'll flip through and get the packet with the information for them, and I'll make small talk. And if I realize the veteran's there, part of it is an interview form.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
the guardian has that conversation with the veteran.
Right.
And when there's a veteran there, I'm like, hey, look, one veteran to another, it is super, super, super important for you to open up as
Right.
much as you can and share
Yeah.
this with your guardian,
Right.
especially if your family.
Right.
Get those stories down. My grandfather was in World War II. He didn't talk to anybody about his service. He had
Yeah.
a battle buddy
Yeah.
would come, according to my uncle, would come like once or twice a year. They'd go walk out on the farm. They'd walk for a couple of hours. They'd come back crying.
Right.
That was his only way of processing and kind of
Yeah.
dealing with it. He
Right.
never told stories to my dad or my uncle.
Wow. Wow.
My other grandfather served in Alaska between 46 and 50. He was building radar towers. Nothing, I mean, compared to my other grandfather fighting in World War II, there was
Yeah.
nothing
Right.
super significant, but he still never felt like anything was significant enough to talk about.
Right.
Which on the flip side is like, it is significant.
It
You
is. It
were
is.
all in that post-war, the early Cold War, all these
Yeah.
different things. He was in
Yeah.
Alaska, traipsing around in knee-high snow and building buildings for radar, you know, like before the
Yeah.
Cold War. That was
That's
huge for us in the Cold War, you know?
significant work. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like
I, I think that a
everybody's
lot.
story needs to be
Yeah.
told.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is that generation. They came back home and they just went back to work. You know, they went to work. The World War II. My dad was was in the Navy in World War II. He was aboard the USS Hornet when Jimmy Doolittle and the Raiders left the deck with 16 B-25s, and they all knew if they got off the deck, there was no way they were going to come back and land. And you could tell he was very proud of that he was on the ship that day. And of course, the ship was sunk and he was in the water for I'm not sure how long, but he didn't talk a whole lot about that. But you could tell he was very proud that he was on the ship that day when Jimmy Doolittle. That was an infamous ship, a
Oh,
famous ship,
absolutely.
famous ship. And
I mean, it'd be kind of
yeah,
crazy to be on there and realize like these guys are going to take off on this crazy, wild haymaker
yeah,
of a
yeah,
mission
right.
that, if it's successful, is going to have an impact.
Yes, yeah. And they were pretty confident they could get off the deck, but they knew for a fact that they weren't coming back. They weren't going to land on that deck. They couldn't land again. So that's a whole story in itself.
I think
The
there's a couple of
Doolittle
movies
raid.
about that. At least some documentaries out there. If somebody's not familiar,
Yeah.
they definitely need to go check it out.
Oh yeah.
That whole story is just crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
You take something that can't take off or land on that short of a runway and make it happen.
Right. Right.
American
Yeah.
ingenuity, right?
Yeah. Well, and you know, it speaks to me. It speaks a lot about leadership because Doolittle, his was the first plane to leave. He flew it off. He was the first plane to leave that deck, and to me, that's leadership. You're not afraid to. Okay, boys, I'll show you how it's done. You follow me behind, and they did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
Rick, I appreciate you
Okay.
willing to be on this
Well,
podcast and sharing part of your story and sharing a little bit of what you do in the community, because I think some people sometimes just need to be connected back to our military and veteran community in one way
yeah,
and
you're right.
do some things that maybe somebody else can say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can find a group to go have breakfast with or go to a school and
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
to kids or whatever, help on an honor flight or VFW
Yeah.
Legion, whatever.
Yeah.
So
We've had some news crews come over to the grade school and covered our fist bumping and all, and and anytime I have opportunity to speak to the news crew, I tell them uh, I'd like for other veterans to see this and go talk to their school administrator. Say, hey, uh, we're just a bunch of knuckleheads that go over there and fist bump the kids. It's not rocket science. And so what I'd really like to see is other veterans in every town go to their grade school, fist bump, talk to the administrator, make sure it's okay. COVID made it a little bit of a challenge. We ended up fist bumping kids through windshields, side windows, when we could still get out. And then there was a lockdown. We didn't think that was a good example to the kids. So we did stop for about 3 months. We couldn't do it. but anyway, well, I've enjoyed. Yeah, I hope I haven't overstayed my welcome here.
no,
So I've enjoyed.
no. And give a good point on the kids, because like you said, the one little girl like just woke up ready to go to school. There's a
Yeah.
lot of kids that don't wake up every day or even once a
Right.
week and be excited to
Yeah.
go to school. So if they're
Yeah.
excited to go learn and they're
Yeah.
happy in the morning, they're probably going to be better and more receptive to learning.
Yeah.
That's our country's
Absolutely.
future.
Yeah. Well, Mrs. Hanson, the principal, she's told me, Tremont's a small little town, but it's not that much different than other. It has issues. It has families that are in crisis, and she's told me, she said, that fist bump and that smile and that good morning, it's the highlight of that kid's week. Now she can't tell us particulars, which is fine, but we know there are kids that come by us that's their bright point in the week for that. So that we don't need to know who they are.
Yeah.
It's
You just need to know that they're making an impact.
We just know we're making an impact. So my encouragement, especially to other veterans, would be go to your school administrator, talk to them, say, hey, what would you think of just once a week or once a month even, That's what I'd really like to see. We're in our 6th year, and I'd like to see other veterans groups in towns of different sizes. It's a simple thing to do, and then you go out for breakfast.
Depending on the size of the school, the kid's probably on and off the bus in about 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it doesn't take long for kids to hop off the bus. And but we've got signs we've had made up. The preschool there at the Tremont preschool had some signs made from kids have made signs. So we have those out every week. We fly each of the military flags on a little bench every week. So the kids see it. Well, of course, we'll be starting Nets for Vets here soon, fundraiser for Honor Flight. That'll be starting in early November, I believe. So try to impact the kids as much as we can. We're putting together a little flag retirement instructional thing for the kids, so they'll know the proper way to retire a flag. And as upset as people get as people burning a flag, that's the proper way to retire a flag.
Yeah.
It seems ironic in a way, but so we're going to have a little instructional thing. We've probably got 25 flags that need to be retired. So we're going to try to put together a little educational thing for the kids so they know what the proper way is. There's a regular ceremony for it, and we're going to have that. So we're looking forward to different things as kids. We do a toy drive as it gets closer to Christmas. We have kids drop off toys. We got baskets out on the sidewalk, and Mrs. Hanson usually knows of a family or 2 or 3 or more in Tremont that need a little assistance, a little help Christmas time, and what's left over we take to the Marine Toys for Tots, and so we get rid of a lot of toys that way. We don't keep any for ourselves.
No, yeah. Are you sure?
Yeah, we don't play with them.
You still don't play with Legos or Lincoln
No,
Logs?
I don't know. I'm beyond that. I like to say I've grown up, but my wife may tell you differently.
Yeah, that's probably all of us.
Yeah.
So awesome, Rick.
Okay,
Until I see you next time, once again, I appreciate you being on the podcast.
All right. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it very much.
All right, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that and found some inspiration in some ways that maybe you can take back to your community and serve your community. Remember, you can go check out my website, battlebuddypodcast.net, for information and resources on a variety of topics. Like I always say, if something's not there and you think it should be, reach out and let me know. And if you're struggling today, remember the National Suicide Hotline number is 988-PRESS-1.